So I'll get started with a little bit of housekeeping here, like I mentioned earlier. So obviously we're using Zoom today for the presentation, and your mics will be muted throughout the presentation. There will be a few poll questions, so look for those on some of the adventure topics here tonight. We will open it up for questions towards the end of the presentation, and you will be able to either use the Q&A function, or you can raise your hand and ask a question live if you'd like. You can see the two buttons down at the bottom of your screen, should be in the center bottom of your screen for those two options. You can actually type a question during the presentation, and we'll most likely will hold that to the end, but we can keep track of them. And there will be a questionnaire emailed out to anybody that registered tonight. And you'll be able to also forward that questionnaire to others, and you'll be able to see the presentation online as well. So that's really important. That's where we want to really capture, once you've been through the full presentation, answer those questions. That's how we really want to gather your feedback tonight. So welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're really excited that you're here. This team from Stantec is really excited to be here with the team from Port St. Lucie. My name is David, and I'm going to kick it off here. So our agenda for the presentation, we're going to give you some, background on how we got here tonight. We're going to go over the site a little bit. We're also going to give you some background on adventure parks and kind of what we're talking about. And then we'll get into the potential activities. That's where we really need your feedback. That's where the poll questions will be, that part of the agenda. And, we really want to hear from you. Those activities are grouped in some subject matter like bike, skate, that kind of thing. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for attending tonight, whether you're in person or joining us via Zoom. My name is Brad Keene. I'm the Assistant Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Port St. Lucie. I'm excited to have with me tonight, and you may meet her at some point in the presentation, the project manager, the city's project manager for this project, Ms. Kelly Boatwright. Together, she and I are working with Stantec to make this project happen. We're excited about the possibilities and certainly excited about hearing your input tonight. To give you a very brief background why we're here tonight, and about a year ago in 2019, July of 2019, the City Council approved the Park and Recreation Department's 10-year Parks and Recreation Systems Master Plan. And in that plan, we have a list of projects and goals that we want to achieve over the next 10 years. Also, in correlation with the 10-year master plan, the City of Port St. Lucie has a strategic plan, and it is this project, the Adventure Park, is one of the City Council's strategic plan goals to make happen. So we have two very in-depth documents that call for the implementation of this project. And we are in the early stages or processes working with our consultants to gather the data, the information, the public input to formulate first a conceptual master plan and then proceed to a point where we can implement the design and the permitting and ultimately the construction of this park. So it's an exciting time. We look forward to hearing your input. We hope that everybody has their creative thinking caps on, and we look forward to seeing what the end result will be in the form of a conceptual master plan. Thank you again for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Brad. So what is an adventure park? We're going to show you a few examples and show you a short video with some of those activities, but you can kind of see the parlay here of activities that we're talking about tonight. So biking, climbing, skating, ropes climbing, all that kind of stuff. So, Mike, are you muted?
Yeah, so I think you're just gonna do a quick overview of some different park projects. This is more bike specific, dirt and asphalt, pump track, dirt jump lines, and sanctioned BMX racetrack. This next slide is a example of one of the earlier municipal public
Having a little issue with Mike's audio.
BMX racetrack, walkways, and fishing ponds.
Can everybody hear me still? I think we got Mike.
Yeah, we can hear you, David, if you want to go ahead and take over for him.
Sure. So, this is another example with a lot of different types of activities. So you get some bike components of the velodrome, the oval you see in the upper left-hand corner, and a BMX track. Really large wheel-friendly plaza that has, room for skateboards, scooters, bikes, etc. At the center features this rock climbing wall. So, something like a rock climbing wall be very cool to have outside in the park, but it does require operations, oversight, may require fees, stuff like that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get different activities.
And another thing to add there, Dave, is City of Baton Rouge claims this is the most successful park in the history of Baton Rouge.
That's right. That's right.
Which
Very,
is
really popular. Okay. So I'm gonna switch over and share a little video with you. So this is an example of some of the activities, in the park or, in the Ford Adventure Park that we're talking about. I'm going to switch back over to the presentation now. So our project site is right off the Florida Turnpike, right off the Crosstown Parkway to the south. It's, the West Centennial High School is right adjacent to the west of our site, and West Middle School is also located right there. We have an access road, that goes right off to the high school, and you can see obviously the shape of the site kind of lends itself to, maybe some different activities fitting in the northern part of the site versus the southern part of the site. We'll talk a little bit more about that after we get through the activities. We also have to plan around the Florida DOT is planning an on and off ramp sometime in the future. So we need to think about that as we try to plan for this park. That could work out to buffer elements. It could also be an opportunity to work under the ramp to provide shade, etc. So it's something that we're treating as a potential asset amenity to the park. So potential program elements. So we're going to go through a series of the various elements we've started to talk about here tonight. So they're grouped into categories, like I said earlier. So bike is the first category up. Mike, could you take over?
Sure. Going through the bike categories for the adventure park, we have just some preconceived elements for the overall design, which include a BMX racetrack that would be sanctioned, holding practices during the week, sanctioned races on the weekend, and potentially
So it's like we're having audio issues again with Mike. I'll try to
oh,
take
can
over.
you hear me?
You're in and out, Mike. Want to give it another shot?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yep. Go ahead. Give it a shot.
Okay. And then the next category would be pump tracks, which is would be free play, come in, ride, and that would accommodate all size mountain bikes all the way down to scooters and skateboards. So it'd really be a non-motorized, wheel-friendly environment for the pump tracks, free play.
David, you're gonna have to.
So
The next category would be jump lines, single track jump lines, which could be gravity fed, different elevations and different skill elements. The next slide will be looking at skill zones, which would accommodate all ages and skill levels for mountain biking primarily.
working on balance and agility.
Right. Then the last category would be concrete park, freestyle, free ride environment for BMX bikes, but it would also accommodate and could accommodate skateboarding and scooters.
You can see on the right-hand side of the screen there, we have those little check boxes. You know, most of these activities would be open, drop in, you know, bike around, pump track, etc. The BMX racing would require registration, reservation fees, that kind of thing. So we have a live poll, and we'd like you to choose your top 3 bike elements.
Hi, everyone. This is Kelly Boatwright, Project Manager for the City of Port St. Lucie Parks and Recreation Department. If you would be so kind to take our poll tonight, we have about 3 of these that'll be throughout the presentation. Our first one's going to be, choose your top 3 bike elements: BMX racetrack, pump tracks, jump lines, skill zones, or freestyle. Up to 3. Going to give you about 15 seconds to finish this one up, and then we'll show you all the results. All right, so we're going to close out that poll and show you our results.
Oh, pretty even
Wow.
spread there.
That's pretty even.
Yeah, that's great. That's exciting. Thank you for voting, and look forward to the next poll here. Going to move into wheel-friendly plaza environments. Mitch, can you lead us through the part of the presentation?
Hi, everybody. My name is Mitch. I'm a designer at Stantec, and I'm going to run through a couple different types of concrete wheel-friendly plazas and parks that are up for consideration. The first being a wheel-friendly plaza, and this type of park would include types of things you would find in a pedestrian plaza, but are meant to be ridden by really anything with wheels: skateboards, rollerblades, bikes, scooters, you name it. And it would include features that you'd find out in the natural environment, like stairs, ledges, railings, planters, manual pads. maybe some banks, not a lot of transition, definitely no bowls or snake runs, but maybe a quarter pipe here and there. And like I said, all wheel friendly, really open program. You can kind of get anywhere and everywhere in this park. And the other option is more of a BMX skate flow park. This is where you'd find a lot more transitional features, quarter pipes ranging from small mini ramps up to full depth bowls, snake runs, flow pockets, things like that. And these elements carry, a higher element of speed and are geared a little bit more towards traditional wheel sports like bikes and skateboards and scooters. But these two types of parks don't coexist, or definitely can coexist together. So it's about finding a balance in there. But we just wanted to gauge your interest as a community about which you would like to see more of. So I think this brings us to our next poll, and Kelly will explain it.
Hi again. So now our poll number 2. How often would you attend a wheel-friendly plaza? Daily, once a week, or once a month? We'll give you a few minutes or a minute to answer that one for us. Okay, we're going to give you just a few more seconds. And we're going to close this poll out and show you our results.
Again, really quite even. Oh, great. Thank you. Okay, we're going to get into more adventure elements that we consider for the park. Sean's going to take us through this section.
Hey guys, I'm Sean. So a couple of elements to talk about besides BMX and skateboarding is one of them we touched on early on, but rock climbing is definitely an element we're talking about right now to add to the park. A couple different kinds here. You see the first one on the top would be more of a free climbing setup where you'd have either an automatic belay up top or a supporter down below to help you get up the wall, or the second feature below would be more of a bouldering situation where it wouldn't necessarily need to be managed or operated by somebody. So two different kinds of rock climbing features we're considering right now for the park. We've talked about some ropes course and zip lining. They could be integrated into one feature, or they could be separated into two separate kind of categories that coexist together. Again, this would be something that would need to be managed and operated by either the parks or somebody else. Great for group activities, corporate events, definitely a really great adventure element that would really add to the park. Some next activities we're looking at were some Ninja Warrior or parkour type courses. They could be used for boot camp situations, group activities, something like that. As you can see on the bottom, it looks like a more kind of put together, almost like a training ground, if you will, for something like a Spartan race, where manufacturers now are creating these programs or these park features that could be combined into really create these pretty cool, unique Ninja Warrior type courses. And up top, you've got some more traditional wood or concrete parkour type courses that have also been constructed around the country. And the last item we've talked about also internally is the idea of an artificial wave, or wave box. And there are these various layouts and sizes that could be accommodated on the property itself, but just the idea of an artificial wave being brought to this site as an adventure element as well. Again, this would be something that would need to be managed and wouldn't be something you can necessarily walk up to the park and just jump on without anybody supervising or anything like that. But could be a great element to add to the park as well. So I think with that, we do have another poll where we'd like you guys to rank your top 3 adventure elements, and those will be listed in the next poll question.
And our last interactive poll question for the evening is, choose your top 3 adventure elements. rock climbing, ropes course, zip lines, parkour, ninja warrior, or artificial wave. We're going to give you about 30 more seconds to answer the question. Give you about 5 more seconds. Okay, well now we're going to show you the results.
Great. Very popular on the Ninja Warrior side. That's great. And pretty even with the rest there. Thank you. Okay, some natural playground or play features. We want to support, all ages with this potential new park. So you might see, we might have a small playground area for younger kids in the park, and we want them to get the same adventure feeling that, some of the bigger kids might get on some of the elements. Play features like this, part of the idea behind having a play area like this is supporting the bigger elements. Like if we have a BMX racetrack where the whole family might come out for the day, of races and spend time in the park. So an element like this might support another element within the park. And then, developing, a new park for the city of Port St. Lucie, we have to have a lot of the other elements, typical park elements to support the park. Like, we're considering signage and wayfinding throughout the park. Picnic shelters, a birthday party in the park, some informal spectator areas, especially around some of these, exciting elements. People want to come out and, might want to just come out and check out the wheel-friendly plaza and see what's going on. Something like the BMX track would have like a larger set of stands and bleachers, so on. And, we'll have site lighting and other amenities like that to support, again, the park and the park users. So all of your feedback from tonight and the survey we're going to send out after the presentation, we'll take all that information and we'll develop some concepts. And we're going to present those concepts at another workshop in about a month from now. So look for the advertisement for that. We'll also email everybody the details on that. But this is just an example. Again, the highway ramp, we need to kind of put plan for that in the master plan. In this particular case, it's kind of a buffer between maybe the ropes and maybe the BMX freestyle plaza that's going on there. It shows how we might access the site. In this concept, we spread out the parking a little bit. We might have a trail all around the perimeter of the park. So just a concept. We want to take all your feedback and incorporate that into the new concepts. Just another concept, shows a little bit more condensed parking area, a little bit more linear jump lines, kind of a little bit more, bike to the highway side or east side of the site, skate up front. Well, this concept has a big boot camp, could be boot camp Ninja Warrior, Tough Mudder kind of area in green there. And again, I talked about the shape of the site, something like zip lines and ropes courses fits a little bit better into the, tighter, more triangular part of the site. So all things we have to take into consideration. Again, we want you to kind of understand where we're going with the information you provide. So we're going to open it up for questions. I think we'll start with, maybe I think we had a few questions come in during the presentation, and then you can continue to type in questions if you'd like, or you can raise your hand and you'll get unmuted to ask your question live.
So we did have a couple of questions get written in. So we'll start with, someone asked, what about a mountain bike trail system?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. looping around those two master plans, maximizing the overall length and perimeter, and possibly going into the jump lines and skills areas along that trail. We envision having mountain bike trails, hike trails, but the mountain bike trails could split off into feature-rich environments, to jump lines and other things, and some resting zones along that pathway from that first concept that Dave showed. And really the master plan that was shown was just to show physically the program elements that were presented tonight could fit on the site. We want to try to do something that's really significant in each faction and not have too many areas where maybe one area is not really done well. So we want to make sure that everything on this master plan is done world class.
Yeah, and there will be the questionnaire that will go out after the presentation. You know, there will be the option to put in some other, you know, comments, maybe some things we didn't cover here tonight. So please remember to answer the questionnaire.
Okay, so our next write-in question was, is drone racing, RC racing under consideration?
I think based on the nature of the site and the other activities, we haven't considered it for the site yet, but it's something we will take into consideration and talk further with city about.
Hey, Dave, this is Brad. I would like to tell or inform the commenter that the city currently has a site set aside for unmanned aerial vehicles and quad flying equipment. It's located at the RC Hobby Group's site off of Blanton in the Torino area. So right now we do have an area for that type of activity, and all it takes is to join the club that's out there. It's a very nominal fee. I think it's $5 a year, and they have full access to the site. There's an area for RC remote control cars. There's a runway for airplanes, and there's a drone flying area and racing course through the forest. So it's pretty exciting area that we currently have, and we would encourage you to seek those folks out at the RC Hobby Group and enjoy yourself out there as well.
Great. Thanks, Brad. That's great.
Okay, so our next question will come from our Zoom participants that wants to ask, and we're going to unmute Robert. Robert, would you like to ask your question to the panel?
Yeah, well, actually, my main concern is, getting a different mountain bike, trail system, included into the site plan. I manage the mountain bike club within Jonathan Dickinson State Park, Club Scrub. And I mean, we have 3,000 members alone. I mean, on an average weekend, with the trail system that we have built and maintained there, on an average weekend, good weather weekend, we'll have 2,500 people come in and out of the park throughout the whole day. I think that there is, a huge mountain biking specific boom right now. And I think that, we should definitely, look into including, like I think David was his name, had suggested, incorporating the jump lines. You could come through the jump line, almost like how Santos mountain bike park up in Ocala, Florida, where you can, ride through the trails. The trails kind of pop out to, the jump line area. You can, traverse through the jump line, dump back into, feature-rich trail environment. And, in all honesty, I don't know if you guys are going to have it professionally built or if you're going to rely on volunteer help with the, mountain bike trail system. But like I said, for years I've been out at JD, running the show there and building trail, and I'd love to get involved if in any way possible. But
well, you bring up a really good point, especially right now we're in the programmatic master plan stage, but as it starts getting into the trails, if that is something that's high on it, which we're seeing some great results, trails, feature-rich trails, gravity-fed trails, flow lines, pump tracks, is to not have something that's so segregated, but it's more integrated throughout the site. And there
Of
could be
course.
different areas that, some that are funded and run and maintained by the city, and others that are maintained through a separate 503c mountain bike group or bike group that, has an agreement with the city to maintain it. We've got that in Austin and 9th Street and Walnut Creek and Pump Track and Trails and other, areas. So it's a really good consideration that we'll take in. Thanks for your
Yeah,
input.
well, no problem. I mean, that's also kind of what we do with JD is, all of our everything, all the material we get, it's all done, by donation base and our membership base. And that's why, we have built, we're kind of fortunate at Jonathan Dixon because we do have, a lot of elevation change. I mean, we're not talking big mountains, but we do have, some elevation between, sea level to 85 feet, over the course of our 10.5-mile trail. We have everything from, very like beginner, like kids on balance bikes area, green and blue trails. We've built everything to IMBA standards, and the DEP standards without the state, and the club maintains all 10.5 miles of them. I'm one of the main trail builders out here. We also have, another, our trail designer who has actually built, he's a longtime biker and BMX national, champion racer. So he comes out, and with that, that's kind of exactly what we've built out there is a lot of gravity fed flow trail areas. We have a lot of technical features and stuff like that. So I think, especially up in this area where the trail systems are very sparse, to have this included, it would be a huge draw just by seeing, what the people, have asked for, the amount of people that, is drawn into Jonathan Dickinson State Park every week, and I think it's definitely a major, important aspect, to have integrated into the whole of the park.
Thanks, Robert. That's great input. I want to get to some of the other questions.
All right. You guys have a good night. Appreciate you.
Kelly.
There we go. So we're going to go next back to some of our written questions. So we have a question for when is this targeted for development? And I can actually answer to that a little bit. We currently have requested funding in next year's budget for the first phase it's 1.7 million and a little 1.78 million. And then we've requested funding the following year for a phase 2 in the amount of $2 million. So as long as those budgets get approved, that's what we're looking at for development right now. So, and then future years, if there's future phases, that's to be determined.
Yeah, great question, great answer, because I should have mentioned it earlier. One of the reasons why we put the diagram together at the concept at this point is that, the elements will have to be phased in. So based on feedback again and popularity, we'll have to make decisions about what might phase 1 and phase 2 might be.
Okay. So, all right. And our next question is, what about a water park so we don't have to go outside of the county?
Brad, want to take that one? Or I think, this particular site and mission was for a little bit more on the action side. So, the wave rider kind of speaks to the, boards and bikes and skates side of it. So.
And that's a good point, David. Thank you for reinforcing that. Again, the intention and the intended use of this particular site with this project is for the genesis of it really started with creating a skate park, and then it kind of morphed into skating and BMX, and then it morphed even further into a full-blown adventure park. But that's not to say that a water park is not needed in Port St. Lucie as well. The city over the last several years has done any number of surveys, and having a water park, a family style water park, has always rated pretty high in the responses to those surveys. So while I cannot commit to saying that the city is in a position to build a water park today on this site, I think I am safe in saying that the city is aware of the public's want of a water park for the city. And depending on future budgets and projects and how they're laid out and scheduled out, that might be a project that could come about in the future. So we will certainly always keep that in mind and look forward to seeing how that may happen at some point in the future.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, so next we'll unmute Miss Barbara, and if you would like to ask your question to the panel.
Yes. Hi, I'm actually Barbara's husband, and I'm a resident, just moved up here from West Palm Beach not too long ago. And Dyer Park is a really big park there. And the way you guys are speaking is going to be a little bit bigger than that. And I was just wondering about security, because some places they had cameras and they also have patrol cars drive around every now and then. I just wanted to see how the security was going to be here.
Brad, did you want to take this one or do you want me to answer?
Okay, yeah, as all of our parks in Port St. Lucie, we have a fantastic working relationship with the City of Port St. Lucie Police Department. We actually have park officers that are assigned to patrol our parks, not only individually to patrol them. That's in addition to road patrol and the rest of the police department. So we have a great relationship with the PD. They serve us very, very well. We do have security. We will always keep security in mind. The City Council over the last several years has been very good to the Parks and Recreation Department in terms of providing the necessary funding to install cameras so that we can have a visual component to the park. I am sure when we get to a point where we actually sit down and do the physical design of this facility, of this park, that we will incorporate all of the security elements that may be necessary to operate this park, from security cameras to the way the park is laid out. The police have a program called CEPTED, which is basically increasing your security profile through the design of the park itself. So we'll incorporate all of those features into the design, and we'll always keep security as first and foremost in the design of the park.
Yeah, that's great, Brad. I was going to add that as a designer, we have to be responsible and make sure, police, but also ambulance can get to all aspects of the park, from, safety standards, but it's from a security standpoint as well, getting in and through the site. And then, the cameras are, I think in terms of a master planning stage, that's not something we would put on the plan at this point, but we would put in the budget, and help the county understand what that might cost and budget for infrastructure like that. But we definitely want to plan to get through the site. Pathways and adjacencies and things are important at the master planning level.
Okay, thank you. So next we'll unmute David Ingram, if you would like to ask your question.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
I actually have a couple questions, if that's okay. I grew up here in Port St. Lucie and in Fort Pierce. I joined the military. I was in the military for a long time. And I actually grew up riding bikes or skateboarding and rollerblading over at Skate City that was down at Windmill Point. And then when I left, I guess you guys closed that down. And this is definitely something that the city needs. The city needs this for the younger generation and stuff. Will this park be gated, the skate park? Will it be gated, or is this something that's going to be open 24 hours like other counties around the state have? As well, would you happen to know who the contractor is that's going to be building the park?
So we're not yet to that level of design right now. We're kind of planning, where in the park the wheel-friendly plaza skate park might go and how big it might be, based on feedback.
Okay.
But I don't, these are typically not gated, would typically have hours and, have lighting and, that kind of thing. But, you know, those are
Right.
kind of details for the next stage. But no,
Okay.
thanks for your input. That's kind of, you know,
Yeah, I've been riding professionally. I've been riding BMX professionally for a few years, and I actually own a BMX clothing company as well. And so I travel all over the nation to a bunch of skate parks and contests and all that stuff. So if you guys need any kind of input at all, I'm more than willing to come in and help you guys out if you need it.
great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, David.
Yep. Oh. Leave with me.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to go back to some of the written questions. Are you coordinating with the Traditions Regional Park to make sure you are not duplicating activities? Brad, do you want to take this one for us?
Yeah, that's a great question because we just had our first public meeting on the Tradition Regional Park 2 nights ago, Tuesday, and it was well attended, virtually well attended. And that we're basically running hand in hand with that design as well. It's still in the early stages of planning. We are going to create a conceptual master plan for the Tradition Regional Park, and whoever wrote that question is spot on. We certainly do not want to duplicate the recreational amenities in both parks. So one park may have the skating and the BMX and the wheel-friendly plazas, and the other park, the Tradition Park, may be more traditional sports-oriented. So we certainly want to meet as many needs of the public as possible without duplication within a short distance of each other. So great question. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so then we have the question, what type of fees are associated with the fee-related elements?
Mike, do you want to talk just a little bit to the BMX fees? And then I think the other elements, it's really to be determined depending on whether the city decides to manage something or we get a vendor. It'll come down, some of the elements might come down to, we might have vendors put in a proposal to manage, certain elements, and that will ultimately determine some of the fees.
Yeah, typically on the bike park elements, all mountain bike trails, feature trails, pump tracks, skills loops, you name it, those are all free play, no pay. The only element within the bike park we would perceive requiring a payment would be the sanctioned USA BMX racetrack for practice and race days only. Everything else should be free as it relates to bike activities.
Generally, what is that? What do those fees run generally?
Did you want me to keep listing some other elements, Dave?
No, I was just curious, like can you speak to like the BMX fees? What are they typically like?
Really depends. Local can be around $15, practice $7, nationals $60, 40 for open, 60 for class.
Very reasonable.
Yeah, right. And at the local level, and then there'll be camps and clinics.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, David, I just wanted to add real quick regarding the fees. Again, very, very early in the process. It's also going to depend on whether or not the city entertains or develops a relationship with a third-party operator or vendor. At that point, there may be the decision is made to have fees in order to for that vendor or operator to do what they have to do out there. So I wouldn't want to give anybody the illusion that, tonight we're saying everything's going to be free of charge, but there may be a point at some point in the future where we bring in a third party public-private partnership, and they of course will charge some fees. Now I will say that I know for the skating, I think we're probably pretty certain that that's going to be a feature that is going to be drop-in, free of charge type thing. But there may be other elements of this project that unfold or become part of the project in the long term that there may be fees associated with it, such as the climbing wall and other activities.
Exactly. If it requires staff and oversight and, you know, even if it's city oversight, but they have to staff it, it, you know, can cost addition than a typical park.
Okay, we have a question from the site here in the room. Our guest would like to know about the addition of other younger oriented features, potentially including elements such as carousel.
That's a great question. We haven't yet considered that. We'll put it on the list. They're typically, you know, like I talked about, some of the other play features are usually, you know, you can see there's a whole host of wheel-oriented features, and we do try to accommodate, you know, scooters and, you know, at every age and skill level. So don't know if a carousel will be part of that, but we'll put it on the list. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we have Randy. We're going to take you off mute if you'd like to ask your question to the panel. Randy, you may need to unmute your computers from your
Can
Zoom.
you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. My name is Sarah, and my grandson started as a Strider bike rider at 2, and now he's 8 expert down in Okehele. A big group of us, they go down there a couple times a week. It's a haul. It's a hour trip south, and this is very exciting to see this coming to our community. It's been a great sport and family involvement and community involvement. It's been wonderful. My question is, how do you decide what's going in there? Is it a vote per, how are you going to decide in the community the vote of, say, a BMX track? And how does that come about on what you decide to put in there? Is it, do we get to vote somewhere? Or, I mean, I guess that's how my question is.
Yeah, I think attending the meeting tonight is important, and you know, answering those poll questions. But then we are going to also send out a questionnaire, and you can forward the questionnaire to others, and they can watch this presentation from
awesome.
tonight,
Okay,
and they
good.
can answer the questionnaire.
Okay.
So we are relying heavily on, you know,
Community.
community input.
Awesome.
And there's, Randy, there's be other factors too. One, you know, which entity is interested. If we do need support, like I know right off the bat, USA BMX support St. Lucie as a location for a track for the Florida series and for international and other factors. So as long as there's other matrix outside of the public meetings that we got to look at.
We're close to Vero Beach too, so I definitely will bring in from both sides, south and, you know, north too, for sure. That aspect.
Awesome.
And we also have input from previous, you know, park workshops or.
Right. Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. So what is the time frame for completion? I think I can answer this one in the sense that kind of relating to the funding that we had, question we had earlier. We do have funding set up for construction beginning this next fiscal year. So we hope to begin construction then. And we will do a phase 1, and depending on what the elements are that are chosen to go into phase 1 and based on that budget and finance. And then the following year, we've requested an additional $2 million that we hope to be able to put into a phase 2 and construct the amenities that are chosen, you know, as additional amenities. So we at least have a 2-year construction budget. As far as completion, it kind of depends on, you know, what is decided by, you know, council and residents in that regard. But we also have a 10-year master plan that has, you know, in adopting that, that was the funding that was adopted for that. So unless it is decided to put additional funding towards it, that's where we're at right now. Probably 2 years.
Thank you.
So I've got it's kind of just a statement, but I'm guessing a question is there would be a water park, a water park that would work for all ages.
Brad already spoke to that.
Yeah, I think we kind of already spoke to that in the sense that, Brad, did you want to come and kind of reiterate what you had said earlier? I think you talked about it maybe possibly going at Tradition as opposed to this site, correct?
Well, I just, again, like to reiterate that the original intention of developing an adventure park on this site was, it started out as a skate park. So we're really talking more in terms of adventure type sports. That's not to say that a water park is not needed or wanted in Port St. Lucie. As I said before, we've had polls and surveys that indicate that that want and need comes in relatively high. But I don't think the intention of this project, nor do I, and I can't speak for city council, but I don't think it's their intention to develop a full-blown water park on this site. There may be a water element in terms of a artificial wave, but that's probably, if that comes to pass, that would probably be the extent of any type of water feature.
Right. Again, I mentioned earlier, trying to offer like, you know, the board sports as in, you know, another outlet to skateboarding, and is partly why the wave is in there.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question. Will there be a particular area for the handicapped or wheelchair bound? For example, a swing, adaptive equipment, etc.
So Mitch and Mike, I think both spoke to this a little bit. You know, the wheel-friendly plaza will be designed to accommodate wheelchairs. So, you know, rolling in and taking advantage of, you know, the plaza on a wheelchair will be, you know, will be accommodated there. Don't know, you know, we haven't considered other, you know, traditional equipment.
All right. This is kind of a statement, I think, but maybe there's BMX. I think a BMX track will attract a lot from all areas. I think we have actually, you know, research has shown that we have a lot of local interest in a racetrack and probably regional and maybe statewide interest in a racetrack. So we are hopeful of that as well. So the next question, David Ingram, I think he actually asked this question live. We had him raise his hand, so we're gonna move on with that one. So our next question, will there CCTV coverage of the park monitored? Yeah, oh, okay, so PD or substation. Brad, would you like to speak to the security coverage? I think we kind of touched on this already, but.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, again, we work very closely with Port St. Lucie Police Department. I certainly cannot speak on their behalf in terms of a police substation, but there would be a security presence that comes throughout the facility on a regular basis, whether it be, as I said, our parks police officers, whether we have Parks and Rec staff that are stationed there during the hours that the park is open. So that, and as far as the closed circuit television, we will have security cameras in place, I'm sure.
Great, thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, so Councilwoman Caraballo would like to know, or Anaya wants to know, will there be able to be food trucks for drink and snacks while playing?
So food truck conversation is part of all these park planning today, because it's a great way to not only introduce, concessions, maybe forego the traditional, concession window in a park like this when you can have the food trucks accommodate a space. It also, you can change it up, you're not always offering the same option. So yes, definitely food truck space will be part of the program we will look at accommodating here.
Thanks. All right, so our next question is, the USA BMX community is really excited about a new BMX track. Is the BMX track a permanent idea for the space or just an idea? So I guess I can speak to that some. I mean, we're doing the public outreach because in the past and in recent years, it has been deemed as a desire for the community here. And if it comes to pass, and this is actually what, and I think it will, I mean, it's looking very positive in that direction. If that's what is chosen to be constructed on this site, it will be a permanent idea. I mean, if that answers that question, sorry. And then the next question I'll go ahead and answer as well is the date. I kind of touched on this earlier. We have construction funding over the next 2 years for phases 1 and 2 for the site. So whatever amenities are chosen to be on the site that can be funded in that period of time will be constructed, should be constructed. Okay, so we're going to unmute Elliot Gonzalez, if you'd like to ask your question to the panel.
Hey, how are you, team? I just wanted to say thank you so much for keeping Port St. Lucie beautiful and investing the time and money and effort into programs like this. I wanted to just mention this is an excellent opportunity, for Port St. Lucie Police Department, to get involved on ground zero of this. So they could plan something like a substation to promote more community policing and give this younger generation the opportunity to see our loyal police officers in a different aspect than what they are being portrayed as. And I think at Port St. Lucie, we have a beautiful city here. Everybody gets along great. And that's what attracts a lot of people from down south up to our city, is because community policing and the level of interaction that we have. And I think you guys are doing a great job. But I also think that with this program here, with this park, would be an excellent opportunity for Port St. Lucie to do some, get a substation there, encourage community policing. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your comment.
Thank you. Okay, so our next question is, have you seen what they have done in Bentonville, Arkansas, as well as Johnsonville, Tennessee, and Knoxville, Tennessee, with flow trails, jump lines, and pump tracks? It has turned these places into cycling travel destinations. Not sure if you've seen these videos. Seen the videos I've been posting on your page. I also agree with Rob and am one of his crew members at Jonathan Dickinson. We need more progressive trails to ride.
Yeah, we're familiar with those various facilities. There's some, great destinations, as you mentioned there. And I think that is part of the discussion that we've had with I know the city has had internally, and the council is considering, what's going to bring, they like to bring the idea of bringing people into Port St. Lucie, but they also want to support, the community of Port St. Lucie as well. So we've talked about both extensively, and we'll continue to do that.
Okay, so our next question from the comments are, will there be liability waivers that need to be submitted before usage?
Can you hear me, Kelly?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah, I switched over to my phone. It's a little bit faster speed. Liability waivers, are typically going to pertain to those that might be a public-private partnership. So, for example, for the USA BMX racetrack, if that was something that was approved and decided to move forward, there would be memberships, which are typically $60 a year. There is waivers that would have to be signed before participating in practice or racing. Rock climbing walls, sometimes if you have an outside vendor that wants to come in and operate that, there will be a waiver associated with that. But the actual skate park, bike park, flow trails, pump tracks, whatever it may be, do not require a waiver. Those will be at a ride at your own risk with signage and the way how park and rec rules are written. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
David, Mike, I'd like to just add that I'm sure as part of this research and investigation and eventual development of a conceptual master plan, we will also be researching what municipalities do in other areas that try to reduce their risk and liability in parks of this nature. So we certainly will explore that option.
Yeah, no, that's real critical to see that there's some parallel activities. Sometimes some cities have done it wrong and some have done it right. But I think with, our skill set and knowledge, we should have some, real good direction. I've personally completed over 250 public skate parks. So very familiar with that. And I've done every single BMX Supercross track for USA BMX in North America and a few other facilities. So I'm familiar with both advantages of waivers, no waivers, et cetera. So we'll definitely help you out with that.
Great, thank you. Okay, so our next question was, is that 1.78 million for 21-22 and 2 million for 22-23? Actually, it's 1.78 million for 2021. The new fiscal year starts October 1, and then 2 million for 21-22. So our next question is, will the park be gated and have specific times it will be open? Or will you be following other counties and cities and leaving the skate park open?
I think this is something that's going to have to be looked at through research, having conversations with our design team, having to reach out to other municipalities, how they operate. I won't say that we will lock it down and it'll be inaccessible after a certain point in time, but at the same time, we do have to keep adjacent residents in mind, the security of the facility in mind, and just the general overall operating hours of the park in mind as well. So at this point, I think it's still too early to say which way we're going to fall on that side of the line, whether or not it's open 24/7 or whether or not we do have designated hours of operation. But as far as the gate across the entrance, I guess that will be determined when we decide which way we're going to go with that.
Yeah, that could be a variable too in a mix that adventure park, action sports park. A project I was involved in and completed was the Rockstar Energy Bike Park in Houston, Texas. And the BMX track is locked up. You've got a 5 and an 8 meter hill. So there's certain elements that are going to be protected, and then there's open flow trails, jump lines, and pump tracks, and a concrete bike, primarily mostly bike-driven concrete park there. And then the world's largest skate park is across the street, and that is fenced and has designated hours and lit till, I believe, 10 o'clock. So there could be a variable mix on different areas, depending on what elements are in there.
Okay, our next question. Have you considered the location as a good location next to the schools with the kids attempting to skip school and hang out at this location?
We considered it a good location for, kids that have an outlet after school, a place to go. So when when we learned of the site that was adjacent to the school, we didn't think of them, skipping school and stuff. So I think that's something that parks and school administrators will have to collaborate on.
Just to let the public know too, is also as part of our Parks Police program, we do have 2 officers that are dedicated to truancy. So we have the personnel to make sure that doesn't happen.
Next question, will the city entertain sponsorship opportunities to help offset the cost? I would say absolutely. If sponsorship opportunities present themselves, we would most certainly consider them.
Absolutely.
And that once again could vary by element. It doesn't necessarily have to be advertising. When I did the Boston skate park, Vans put in 1.5 million towards it, and all they wanted was a checkerboard pattern on the central stage element, to be able to have contests and concerts. Rockstar stepped in last minute for Houston and put money in, but they wanted more branding on the start hills. I've done the Etnies skate park, DC Plaza, Nike, other facilities where they want more of a heavy branding or subtle branding. But there's also ways to make it where it doesn't look like a billboard.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, have you done or are you planning on doing any economic impact studies?
So there's a small component of our master plan that will talk about different elements and what the potential, generation can be, but it's not a full economic impact study.
Thanks. Okay, so how large is the land proposed for the site? Will additional city funding be required, or is this all already enough set aside? So on this particular site, there's a little over 38 acres. As they mentioned earlier, there is a potential for a turnpike interchange to go through the site, which may cut down the developable aspect of the land. But we still think that we can do some on the southern portion and some on the northern portion. So we're looking at 25 acres, maybe on one side, and about 10 acres on the other side-ish. And then additional city funding, it depends on the elements that are going to be chosen for the site. So, and how much those end up costing. So, if we have enough to construct everything that's requested and able to fit on the land, then we hope that's the case. Likelihood is we would need additional funding to develop that piece of property entirely.
That's accurate.
So Cody said he's joining late, and we may have already covered, but has there been a discussion about outdoor recreation activities such as high-low ropes courses, mountain biking trails, and rock climbing walls? Will vendors operate these activities or county employees? Well, it would be city employees probably, but many Floridians flock to towns such as Asheville, North Carolina for these activities and could be a huge asset to have locally. Thank you.
So thanks for joining us even though you're late. All 3 of those activities were as part of the presentation earlier and part of the discussion here tonight. So yeah, they're under consideration. Please look for the online survey so you can answer some of the questions and provide your input on those specific activities.
Great, thanks. So next question, will there be natural areas incorporated for schools or groups to use for environmental education? Any coordination with St. Lucie County Preserves program?
Not yet, not currently. Our focus, as you can see by the presentation, has been on, adventure activities. So, I think maybe an outdoor nature area, could be considered.
And the next question is, have you looked into any grants such as the one Bell Helmets Awards for building bike parks? Thank you for the question, Dennis. I actually haven't heard of the Bell Helmets grant. I will look into it. We have looked at other grants for the potential to use on this project, and we'll definitely be looking throughout this process to see if there's anything that would be a good fit.
Yeah.
So definitely.
Yeah, once we have the actual master plan program developed in the plan, then it's an opportunity to look for, more specific grants.
Okay, and our last couple of questions we have right now, we have one that we kind of touched on, what is the time frame for the park to be completed? And on that, we have funding for construction over the next or we've requested funding over the next 2 years for construction of phase 1 and phase 2. And it will depend on if any additional phases get added to that, but as of right now, we're looking at probably a 2-year construction phase. And then the next question, what would the fees be for the activities in the park? I think we've touched on this one as well, but I'll let Mike or Dave take that one if they would.
So yeah, I think ultimately it depends on which activities are run by third party and how much it costs them, the staff and so on. So it's something that, we're looking at in terms of which activities the city can support themselves and which might go to outdoor vendors. So it'll definitely be part of something under consideration. And probably some of those activities also, again, might be phased. So there might be the opportunity in the next year or 2 or 3 to find, vendors to run some of those activities. So any...
Okay. And we have one additional question in the room. Our guest would like to know if we have any idea how high or how long the zip lines may potentially be. I would say we're not to the point of knowing that just yet, because we're not really even sure if we're going to have zip lines yet. But of course, if that does end up being one of our top desired amenities, that's just something that we'll have to figure out in the design phase. Correct, David?
Yeah, correct. We'll get into more, more in the master planning stage. We can certainly say how long, they might be. And then when you get into more detailed design, it would determine a little bit more on height and actual length. I can't say, Kelly, just because we do have them on the concept plans that we showed, that Mitch and I were actually talking about that earlier today, just coincidentally, in case we got a question about it, that, the currently we're showing is the longest one is over 1,000 feet. And we have 4 lines shown on the current plan. So just for what it's worth at this stage, it's just, again, very preliminarily and just to show the possibility of at this point. And hopefully, we did get a lot of good poll responses for zip lines, and hopefully folks answer the questionnaire as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay. And then we have another question. Will this be marketed to attract tourists to the city or primarily to support the local community?
I think that primarily from, the discussions we've had with the city, it's, first primary is local community, and then, next level would be, attracting folks into the community as well. Take any final questions? Folks are still on the line. We still have a good group on the call.
Yeah, I was going to say we've actually gone through all of the written questions, and if anybody would like to raise their hand in the room, we will be more than happy to unmute you and let you ask a question if you would like. Okay, well, if that's all we have for tonight, we appreciate everyone coming to our meeting, and just be on the lookout. We're going to send out the link to our online questionnaire. This will probably be tomorrow. And you can also There will also be a recording of this meeting. So if you would like to refer any of your family or friends to the website to be able to look at the recording and then also fill out the survey, we would love to hear from them and get their input on our project. That's going to be cityofportstlucie.com/adventure park. Sorry, I'm being fed the website as we're sitting here. So again, appreciate your attendance, appreciate your participation. If you have any questions, there will be a comment box on the bottom of the survey. You had a question that you didn't get the opportunity to ask tonight. Feel free to ask it in that, and we will get back to you via the email that we'll ask you to provide on that as well. Thank you so much. And if there's nothing else, everyone have a wonderful evening, and thank you again.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Kelly.